so that way we're not getting stuck and we're not trying to force things to happen or just getting caught up because our dreams are so big, but on our own we're not able to make them happen. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Preconceived podcast, where I have the pleasure and the privilege of introducing my sister, Abigail Edwards, to the podcast. Most of you who know me are going to know her and know a lot of the wisdom that she brings to the table, and I just thought it was important to be able to bring her on here to discuss some important things. We're still making sure that we're focusing on improving our thinking so that we can improve our lives. And I have to say, this isn't our first rodeo. We actually have done this before, and we actually recorded some announcements for our youth group at the time, and we thought we were funny, but...
I don't think I thought we were funny. I thought that it was pretty cringeworthy, but I loved doing it because you were doing it.
Well, maybe you were more self-aware than I was. I thought it was going to be funny, and then we played it at youth group, and it did not generate any laughs whatsoever.
There may have been actual crickets chirping in the background.
So we'll show you just a quick clip of that right now so you can see what we're talking about. Time for our GN Hattrick question of the week.
Number 1.
Please choose.
We've got one. I believe I was a flamingo before. Could that be possible?
Well, I'm thinking the best way to answer this question is probably with another question.
I think so too. Have you been displaying flamingo-like qualities?
Have you been falling asleep on one leg?
Is your favorite color pink?
Have you find a strange attraction to middle-aged women with pink boas?
Have you found small miniature replicas of yourself in people's yards?
If this is the case, our answer is yeah. You might have been a flamingo in a past life. Next question.
Actually having some PTSD from recording that. I suddenly remember exactly how it felt.
So hopefully we've become a little bit more advanced in our delivery and our content, maybe even in, our backdrop. We did the last one with green screen, and you can tell.
And a sheet.
So maybe we're getting better, maybe not. Hopefully we don't get crickets with this one. But moving on, this is the Preconceived podcast. And if there is somebody who is capable and really able to explain a lot of things well that are maybe a little deeper than usual, it would be my sister. She's somebody who I still go to for advice, that I still go to talk about different things, because I really do value your wisdom and your insight on things. And it's funny, I mentioned this on the Everyday Edwards podcast, which we'll link to below, but with Abby, I feel like she knows me sometimes better than I know me, and so I have to ask her questions. Yes, because she's been able to, for 30, how old are you now?
Not 30 yet,
29?
but almost, yes.
29 years.
He never knew how old I was. So.
Yeah, I guess that hasn't changed. I didn't know what grade she was in either, but now I don't have to worry about that, just the age. Yeah, I would have remembered the 30th birthday, so yeah. 29. So for a lot of years, she's known me and had an idea to know me better than I know myself. But I just think it would be fun to have you on, to be able to discuss a couple of things, to be able to talk about some of the ways that we think. And really, when we're talking about thinking, I think more often than not, our thinking has the ability to hold us back or to push us forward. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it seems like a lot of times it's just holding us back, though.
Yeah.
Right? Probably the ones that we look at in life that are really successful are the ones that have learned to think in a manner that is helping them instead of holding them back in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think that's true.
So when I was driving down to work today, I actually saw something that made me think about, the way that we think. And what I experienced, I was driving down to work and I saw a bunch of traffic ahead, which isn't too uncommon driving down to Westchester to the New York City area. But when we got closer, I saw that there was a truck that was pulled over on the side of the road. And I heard the sirens and I saw the lights behind me. There was a police officer coming. But what had happened was this truck had gotten on the wrong road, and he had come to a point where there was this overpass that he wasn't able to fit through. Now, thankfully for him and everybody else, he realized this before he got to the overpass. Because I've seen this before, where they've tried to go through and they've made their own way through, and sometimes they've got stuck. But he saw that his truck was too big for the overpass. He stopped and pulled over. It caused a big headache for everybody, but it got me thinking about how sometimes in our lives we try to make our own way, and we end up getting stuck in life.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of reasons for this, but I think in this case, kind of what this example was showing me is sometimes what we're called to do, who we were created to be, is too big to do on our own, to make work on our own. And so if we're not on the right path that God has us on, or the right path that God has for us, we can get stuck.
Yeah.
We have too much that God's put inside of us to go through the small ways of thinking that sometimes we're prone to thinking.
Yeah.
And I think that can become a big issue in our lives.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So the question becomes, how do we, number one, identify those areas? And number two, then how do we start to think bigger? How do we start to expand our thinking so that way we're not getting stuck and we're not trying to force things to happen or just getting caught up because our dreams are so big, but on our own we're not able to make them happen.
Well, I think what you just described probably is what it looks like in a real world example of getting overloaded and overwhelmed, and what it's really wise to actually do when you start to feel like, hey, this isn't going where I want it to go. I feel like there is too much to fit into that small space. I think that the best thing that there is to do is to stop and to pull over. So I think that act of stopping so many times, I know so many people, probably us included, you get on some momentum, and even though you see the warning signs from far away, you feel like there's just too much momentum to stop going right there. And it actually takes a pretty brave act to breathe and pull over and say, okay, instead of pushing on and just waiting for something else from the outside to stop me, choosing to stop. And I think that gives you some breathing room. Even if there are angry drivers behind you.
And that speaks to me, because knowing my personality, I absolutely would have been the guy to think, all right, it's going to work out. I'm going to make it through. Just to keep going, consequences be darned. And
then you break the overpass.
Yes, and then break the overpass, and it becomes a bigger problem.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to stop and look at it.
I think that most of our problems as adults, and probably in this culture, could be avoided if we were more comfortable with the idea that stopping, breathing, recollecting your thoughts, things like that I think we put too much of a big price tag on that. We think that the consequences of stopping, that we embellish them, we make those bigger, so it almost is like a force that we're trying to run away from. What is everybody else going to think? What is everybody else?
We're afraid of letting other people down.
Yeah, and then getting in that embarrassing position, because a lot of times, unfortunately, we have to backtrack, right? Like sometimes when you're doing something and there is no roadmap and there's no instruction manual, step 1, step 2, step 3, you go for it and you realize that in that first attempt something's not working. And if you don't feel comfortable enough or like it's safe enough to stop, so many times you think of people's faces, like what are they going to think of me if I have to take this back, if I admit that I can't do it, so some people just kind of disappear. I'm probably more like that. And then some people just soldier on, and sometimes that can lead to even bigger problems.
Yeah, and then ignoring all the signs, like you said, along the way.
Yeah.
Because leading up to that point, there were plenty of signs, I'm sure, that said, bridge ahead, this is, the height that you're allowed to go through.
Right.
And if you're not looking at them, if you're just, have so much, I think you used the word momentum, and you're just going, and you never stop to slow down to reevaluate, that's when you get into trouble. And that really is a lot of what this podcast is about.
Yeah.
Think about what you're thinking about. Identify your thoughts. Don't just live with and go through the same situations over and over again. Stop and look at why you're coming to that place over and over again. And yes, if you're willing to stop and look at it, it may not be comfortable. There may be people who wonder, what's going on here.
Yeah.
But it is going to be the most beneficial thing for you.
I think more people, more often than not, would probably actually admire you for stopping and admitting, because I think we're all actually looking to each other for those social cues of, is it okay? Like, is it okay that I don't know what's going on? I think, whether it's in Christianity or in our jobs or our emotions or what we're taking on in life, we feel like we should know.
Yeah.
But everybody's walking around feeling like they should know, and most of us don't.
Yeah. I think I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I forget who it was, but they were basically talking about the fact that at a certain point they just felt like they needed to step away, and they were a pastor. They needed to step down, and when they did that, everyone started to look at them, and they were wondering, well, what did he do wrong? What was his sin? What was his failure? Because too often we see people getting to that point, where the only time they do step down or step away is when there was a failure, where there was a place where they, messed up. But for somebody to have the wherewithal to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to step down now because I just think that there's some things I need to work on.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really important, and I think that's cool, and I think that we should be able to do that in our lives. And it's really great when we have the people around us that we can trust to be able to confide in.
Yeah.
And that's something else we've been talking about, is having the community around us to be able to have that support, to be able to confide in people, to be able to talk about, listen, I feel like I'm at this place where I'm going to get stuck. I feel like there's warning signs that are going on and I don't know what to do with them. How do I now start to reevaluate? What do I have to do to start to change the way that I think around this issue, this area of my life where I feel like I'm struggling with?
If you can start to break through that initial fear, it does get easier after that, because there's a lot of assumptions that we make that keep us from being able to do what really we were designed to do. We were designed by God to adapt, to be able to fail and then try again. We weren't made to obviously just know everything right off the bat and walk through life perfectly and avoid every mess. There's no innovation in that kind of thought process. And so that initial fear of what it's going to mean, if you can really stop, and I think that it's not just a matter of erasing every negative fear that you might have or negative feeling, but to really honestly, even physically start to breathe, to start to, flag it in your mind and say, okay, this is a point where I'm intentionally taking this moment to make sure that I don't get to the point where there is sin that I fall into because I'm running ragged or things that I need to hide. And I think that the leaders in this generation and in our culture that are rising up are saying, the ones that are really, I think, worth their weight in salt or gold or something like
Worth
that.
listening to or following.
Yes, exactly. I think that they're the ones that are noting that you need to, it's more important to work on our health overall and consistently in our lives than it is to do damage control all the time.
Yeah. So I think that's really, really good to see. And there are always going to be warning signs, right?
Always, yeah.
It's not just you drive and then you fall off a cliff. There's always the points
Maybe in
along
the
way.
cartoons, but
Yes.
usually not in real life.
Yeah, usually there are those signs. In life, there are always going to be those signs that say time to slow down, time to reevaluate. So I think that if we kind of left everybody just with that thought today, that it's important to take the time to look at the signs in your life. Look at where you're coming up to places that may be dangerous, or even, like we said, it could be that just God has so much for your life that he wants to expand the highway that you're on and to show you, listen, I have so much for you that I want you to be able to be in a place where it's going to be able to facilitate what I've put on your life.
Exactly.
So it's not always a bad thing. But we have to
Most
stop
of the
and
time,
look.
it's probably not. It's just the way you're looking at it.
Yeah, it's true. Just having a different perspective. Maybe you're stuck right now because of how big your destiny is, how big the dreams that God's put inside your heart. Maybe that's what's starting to make you feel constricted.
Yeah.
And it's just that God wants to show you something else, and he wants to put you in a place where those things are going to be able to grow. It's like the fish in the fish tank, right? The fish generally will only grow to the size of its environment. So maybe God wants to put us in a bigger environment. So be willing to look at the signs.
Yeah.
Be willing to stop when you see the signs, and then ask God which area he wants to start to expand around you and which places he wants you to think differently. So you can start to have the destiny inside of you, the dreams inside of you, the purpose start to grow, and to be able to find a place where they're able to not be restricted anymore.
Yeah, I think that's great.
So I think that's really maybe good advice. Hopefully that's something that is relating to you today. Hopefully that was better than our first announcement video. But if you got anything out of this video, love to see a comment below. Hit the subscribe button. We're going to be having Abby back next week to be able to further this conversation. I think about maybe expanding our thoughts and thinking bigger.
And maybe what the warning signs are that people don't usually take note of.
So that's our hook for next week. So love to see you next week. Thanks for watching and have a great week.
Time for question number 2. Please choose.
Got another one. Are you excited for me to get some type of lizard? It's so cute. It has big eyes. I want it!
Well, the first question is, who are you? Because I don't know who you are trying to get a big lizard. It's pretty girly handwriting, as you can see here, so I'm guessing you're a girl, and Girls usually like lizards.
I didn't think so.
Especially big-eyed lizards like this guy right there. Well, I suppose I'm pretty excited. Do I seem pretty excited? Do I look pretty excited? I might be excited. Are you excited?
I don't know if I'm excited. I can't really tell.
Well, we're glad you want a lizard.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. Next question?
Next question.